25,000 pesos of gold, so 35,000 gold coins of one school.
It sounds like it never happened, guys, but it did.
Well, it did happen in 1860. It's as dynamic as 5 meters in Cuba, but in Cuba 23 meters of that is quite calm 90% of the year. From Europe to Cape Town in South Africa, so some of these ships lost in the way. Hello everyone and welcome to Underwater Adventures with Alex Mirabal. Today we will talk about some treasure wrecks which I would like to find, that I can find, but I haven't found yet. So let's dive into it. Okay, let me explain you a bit how this list goes. First, because these are not the 5 richest treasure shipwrecks to be found. They are the 5 shipwrecks that I want to find, that they have treasure and that I'm able to find. I have working every of them a little bit in the research, sometimes even in the sea, so in situ, but I haven't been able to find them, and I still have this feeling that I could eventually find some of these wrecks, and you will also know the reasons why. It's not the treasure, they all have treasure. Yes?
So, sorry, how can you say that you have worked on them but haven't found them? That's what I'm curious about.
Well, meaning that I have worked on them in the archival documents, so
Okay,
I have checked on the information. In some of them, I have even made a little bit of survey, of exploration, but situations or things out of my control have made me stop it and go to another place or do another thing. So that exploration was cut short and I was not able to find it. And of course, these wrecks I will be talking today, they are difficult to find. That's why I haven't found them. I mean, for me, that this is what I do, finding shipwrecks, they are difficult. So it is a nice mix. You will enjoy them because yes, all of them have the typical treasure, but they all have also another little reason why I would love to find any of the ships. So let's start by the first one. The Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso from 1649. It's a Portuguese ship that is called Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso or Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso do Povo, which would translate to Our Lady of the Great Success of the People.
Yeah, kind of. Our Lady of Success of the People. Yeah, that would be a one-to-one translation. Guys, as you know, we're not religious, so I'm sure there's a better translation for this lady, but yeah, that would be the one-to-one translation in English, yeah.
Okay, the Lady of the Great Success of the People. Portuguese have a very nice way of putting names to the ships.
Yeah.
So this is a very interesting ship because she was built in 1648 and in 1649 she went to Goa, India from Lisbon together with other ships and the San Lorenzo. And they both wrecked the same day. The Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso and the San Lorenzo, they wrecked the same day in different places. The San Lorenzo has been found and located and explored, but the Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso, it's nowhere to be found. For you to have an idea, and then I will tell you why I mentioned that the ship was built in 1648 and sunk in 1649. So 1 year of life had that ship. Why that is important for me? For you to have an idea how dramatic should have been the wreckage of the Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso in Mozambique, because I forgot to tell you, this is in Mozambique. They were going from Lisbon to Goa, but in front of Mozambique, they got caught obviously by bad weather. The San Lorenzo and the Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso, they both sank. for you to have an idea how dramatic should have been that event, in the wreckage, 300 people died. 300 people. 110 made it to land. So they saved themselves from the wreckage. They were cast away. They arrived in land. And then they started a long walk to the island of Mozambique, which was the Portuguese settlement in that area of the coast, which was better prepared. And in that way, only 2 made it to the island of Mozambique. Only 2 people from 110 that arrived to land. So you can imagine how much hardship these guys went through in the way to the island of Mozambique. Obviously, these 2 people who arrived in the island, they were in really bad conditions. They gave a very sketchy account of what happened. They described more or less. I have no information if they were sailors or if they were just passengers or if they were officials or priests. So, because that depends a lot, I mean, the formation of that survivor depends a lot on the quality of the information that that person can give about the wreckage. Because it would be passenger, it can say very little. Okay, it was at this time and we went against some rocks and we lost the ship. One of the things that make this ship so attractive and so important is that it was a total loss. The ship was going from Lisbon to Goa with the normal cargo of money. So they would have tons of silver coins because they were trading in Goa heavily, so they needed all that amount of money. But the fact that it was a total loss, it would allow for any researcher that find the wreck that can go through a very unique glimpse to 1649 period in Portugal and in Europe, because nothing was safe. Most of the people died. There is no location of that site and or location information of that wreck. And also, I assume, because of the things I have read and because of the many years I spent in Mozambique looking for shipwrecks, that it may have struck a rock but then went into deeper waters. Otherwise, we would have already found her. She is in the area of Angoche, nearby. It's a big area, has some deep parts, meaning about 25 meters of depth, which are not that easy to explore. But I have been around. I was never out to look for the Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso in particular, but I have always been investigating with the fishermen and people around. And in the area of Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso, I came across a captain from one of the Spanish fishing fleet that was there fishing for shrimp, and they dragged nets in a certain area which I assume that the wreck should be, and they have picked up in a place 2 anchors, which they show me the photos, which are very old anchors. They gave me the position where the net just stuck on the anchors, and they went to free the net and they saw the anchors in the place. I was not able to go there because of another wreck and another story and another emergency, but I'm not sure, but I'm quite positive that this could be the Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso. And now I tell you why for me it's important that she was built in 1648 and sunk in 1649. Because the ship was new. And the fact that she's in relatively deep waters with a muddy seabed and silt seabed, it makes it very well possible that a great part of the wood structure of the construction of the ship, of the hull, it would have survived because the wood was in very good condition in the moment that they sunk. Different to other ships that have been in service for 20 or 30 years, the wood is already, even when they were floating, the wood was already in bad condition. So that, you see, you have in the same wreck a probability of having a large part of the wood structure surviving saying that it was a total loss, so artillery, cargo, personal belongings, tools, medical instruments, everything will be there. So it is super attractive, super attractive. And 1649 is a very nice period in the history. Portugal was booming in the ship industry, also in the shipwreck production, but it makes it a very nice wreck to find. So you know, the first in my list is the Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso of 1649 in Mozambique. The second one is also in Mozambique, but it's a little bit of a fabled shipwreck. It's the Garça from 1559. It would translate to heron.
I don't even know what a heron is. Garça.
It's a bird.
Garça. Ah, yeah.
A garça.
Garça in egret? Yeah, what? An egret or egret. I'll put a picture. An egret.
Yeah. Garça, it's a bird. And Garça is from 1559. Garça was coming from India with the large cargo of porcelain, of Chinese porcelain. And I'm mentioning this because we had already, when I got the files from the Garça, we had already the experience of the Spadarte, there in Mozambique as well, where the porcelain of that moment that the Portuguese were trying to bring to Europe, it was exquisite. It was beautiful porcelain. It was nothing similar to the many big cargoes of porcelain that came afterwards, like mass production of porcelain to be sent to Europe. So this was a very high quality porcelain, and the Garça, it was so much loaded with that porcelain that she began taking water in the ship. This was not an accident that she went into a reef or anything. The condition of the wood, now remember that I said about the good condition of the wood of the Nossa Senhora de Bom Sucesso. In this case, the Garça was in operation for so many years that the wood had become very like spongy, and water was coming in through the wood. She was very heavy because of the amount of porcelain, and the accounts of the sinking of the Garça explain very well, all of them, that the sea wasn't flat calm. Flat calm. The ship was simply getting water and water and water. They couldn't pump that water out fast enough. So the ship was sinking and sinking, and they were getting closer to land. So in the case that they went down, they could save the cargo, but they didn't make it. The ships accompanying the Garça rescued everyone from board, so nobody died in that wreckage. The ship was simply sinking by itself in a perfect weather conditions. They couldn't recover the cargo because the other ships were loaded as well. So they didn't have capacity to bring the cargo on board, just the people. There is even a very nice story that when they rescued the last people on board, they were going away from the ship in one of these small boats, and they realized that the monkey that was on board was already going up to the mast because the ship was sinking. So they went back to rescue the monkey and brought the monkey along, but nice. They didn't recover any porcelain.
Well, that's what you get for being greedy. Like, that's only greed. That's all it is. The ship sunk because you guys put too much weight on it. Simple.
Same as we sink on the Suban wreck with that sheer amount of porcelain. So the general perception of this ship is that it sunk in deep waters. Deep waters meaning waters beyond diving capability, but there have been some isolated finds of a couple of swivel guns and stuff in front of the beach of Xai in Mozambique, which I think are from the Garça, and the Garça, it could be found probably in a depth maybe 70 or 80 meters deep, but that you can still dive. And this is the kind of wrecks I work, the wrecks in which I can dive. So I put the Garça in the list. I know it's not in my higher point in the list, but it's a wreck that eventually, with a little bit of luck, one can find, me or somebody else. So that will be the second one in the list. The third one in my personal list would be the Santa María de Begoña from 1556. Santa María de Begoña, it was a ship that wrecked during a hurricane coming from South America to Spain. In the way to Spain, they were going to winter in Havana in Cuba, and they were caught by a hurricane, and she went first against a reef, and she broke very quickly and started spilling ballast and stuff, and she went down very quickly in the southern coast of Cuba. Remember, I'm telling you the stories of this wreck, and I'm telling you the general area, but I cannot go and tell you exactly what I think it is, because then I will be giving my work away. But for you to know that there is an area in the south of the western part of Cuba that the Santa María de Begoña is there. And okay, the accounts of the wreck and the manifest of the cargo is really crazy. It is impressive, because they talk about that she was, I will read it because I don't want to forget anything, but said that she was transporting silver and gold in 21 crates, amounting to 91,000 pounds in weight. This is approximately 41 tons. And everyone is always thinking, wow, 41 tons of gold, that is great. Well, okay, don't go that fast. It says 41 tons in silver and gold. Actually,
I was just about to say, that's what made it sink also, no? The 41 tons of gold, it would have made it sink.
Yeah, well, the 41 tons of anything. But we have to have into account that, yeah, obviously silver, it was much more than gold. What is in the manifest of that ship is that she was transporting 25,000 pesos of gold, so 25,000 gold coins of one school. That, if you make, because of the weight of the coin, which is 3.38 grams, if you put that in 25,000, it will give you around 85 kilos. So from 41 tons to 85 kilos of gold.
It's a big difference.
There is a big difference. So yeah, don't get too excited about the 41 tons. I mean, that's most probably 80 some kilos of gold only, let's say.
Only.
And also the ships that made the effort and rescue most of the crew and passengers that they saw the ship sank, they sound the area and they reported that she was sunken about 23 meters of depth, which makes it in Cuba, makes it a very peculiar wreck, because all the wrecks in Cuba, or many of the wrecks in Cuba, are in the reef, on top of the reef, very shallow. So in 23 meters of depth in the sea conditions of Cuba, it must be quite well preserved ship. It should be quite well preserved. The strength of the waves down there is not that much, at least in Cuba. I mean, in Mozambique, 23 meters of depth is as dynamic as 5 meters in Cuba, but in Cuba 23 meters of depth is quite calm 90% of the year. So that also gives me a very good reason why to try and go to find this ship, because on top of it is 15, let me check again, it's 1556, it's quite an early wreck. So the earlier the wreck or the older the wreck is, the more you want to find it, because you are an archaeologist and you have to go investigate old stuff. And we went looking for the Begoña in 1991, the year you born. In 1991, we went looking for the Begoña. We explored the area, let's say, not that thoroughly, but we tried to make a good exploration in that. We didn't have a magnetometer at the moment, but we were diving heavily. There was a big team diving and going around in the place. We found 2 anchors that could belong to the Begoña because of the type of anchor. It would match the period of the Begoña, but we didn't find anything else. And in front of these 2 anchors, this I realized some years later, when studying, well, not some years, but probably like 15 years later, when I was studying the documents of the Begoña for another thing, another project, that not related to Cuba or to the Begoña itself, but I was going through the documents of the Begoña and the navigation charts of Cuba, all navigation charts. And I realized that, because in the documents of the Begoña there is the name of the pilot of the ship, That was one of the guys that survived. And I realized that the 2 anchors we found, they were very close to a key, these small islands of the Caribbean, that is named with the same name of this guy. So the name of the key is the name of the pilot of the Begoña. So it doesn't seem like a coincidence. I mean, okay, the guy had quite a common name, but I will not tell the name so everyone will not go now to the key and try to find the Begoña. But it was the same name as the pilot. And this makes it very interesting, because if the guy survived and ended up in that key and then the key got his name for whatever reason, it means that the Begoña is somewhere nearby. It's not too far from there.
I think that the fact that the key is named after the pilot, although it might seem like a movie plot, it's way more probable that the ship is around there, because as we have known how last names were created in the colonization times and all of those things get named after people either that discover it or that have been around. So it could definitely be used as potential evidence for an archaeologist to prep a proposal to go to that site, I would say.
I mean, if it would have been only the name, but you have the name and you have that nearby the key we found the anchors that would match that period. So, and it's described as the area where the Begoña was lost. Okay, I mean, you put the things together and kind of increases your hopes that you can find that ship. So this one, I have it parked. One day, we'll go back there and we will try to look for it. She's still missing, but as you can see, it's not a crazy option to go and try to find her, because little elements in the story are coming together and it may end up in a very nice discovery. The number 4 in the list is Hoge. And you guys will excuse my pronunciation. I say Hoge. And if my friend Jimmy Heber would be here today with me, he would be laughing his guts out, because I told him that I was looking for that wreck, and when I said Hoge of 1732, he couldn't stop himself, because apparently I'm saying this totally wrong. He was versed in Dutch, because it's a Dutch
I was just about
ship.
to say, this is Dutch. I don't speak Dutch, I speak German, and I don't know, but Hoge, something like that. I don't know either. I don't speak Dutch.
Most probably, I mean, I remember he told me something like that. It was like, you mean the Hoge. Man, we had such a nice afternoon when we were in Strasbourg, in South Africa, in his hometown, and we were talking about this and shipwrecks to be found and stuff. And when I tried to say that name, and I'm sorry I'm repeating it because I never learned how to pronounce it properly. I will eventually. But okay, this was a VOC ship, meaning that it was from the East India Company from the Netherlands. It was a very big and powerful company which has like the best ships of the time, and they were in trade. They were going from Europe to Cape Town in South Africa. So there are some of these ships lost in the way. In this case, it's in Cape Verde, in the island of Mayo, where I have been working long time with the Princess Luisa, the Ernest Schimmelmann. We have talked about these wrecks before. In the island of Mayo, there are quite some wrecks. And this ship, 1732, is reported as lost there. And the main reason why I want to find it, okay, she had some treasure, like six chests of silver coins and stuff, but they were most probably salvaged at the time, so I'm not looking for the treasure of that ship. But because no VOC ship has ever been found in Cape Verde archipelago, and there were few of them lost there. So it would be like, you know, the first VOC to be found.
Of course.
Mayo is very difficult for diving. In some of the parts of the island of Mayo, it's very difficult for diving. But last time I was there, I was investigating with the local fishermen and stuff, and they told me that they brought up a small swivel gun, a bronze swivel gun, that they have funny letters on top. So They show it to me, I took some photos, I may be able to put the photos here. I took some photos of the cannon and the letters were VOC. So the cannon was actually a VOC cannon. And they know, of course they know, the area where they recovered that cannon. I tried to go there with them, but then again, one reason or the other, we couldn't. Remember, now I'm telling you the stories, I'm compiling, I'm putting together all the shipwrecks I want to find. Not all, some of the ones I can talk about, but that I want to find, but that doesn't mean that they are the only shipwrecks I have looked for in my life. So when you are looking for one, you find another, and then you give priority to this one. You know? So it is not that strange that when you are about to start for a new search, your job is calling you. Your job is calling you in another place, or one that you already have started excavating, and you cannot just abandon it and go trying to find the other one. So in the island of Mayo, I have a very good chance of having more or less pinpointed where the slaughter Hoge is. So maybe we will be finding the first VOC in the Cape Verde archipelago ever. And the last one in my list is, the last but not the least, is the Miles Barton. It is kind of my favorite, honestly, and yours as well.
It's my favorite. I was waiting for you to get to this point in the list because I obviously read it a little bit in advance. And I love you to give the context and the story of this one because I really like it myself. And it's also related to something that is quite popular nowadays. So I'm excited for you to share it with our audience because it's one of my favorites too.
This wreck is very close to my heart for various reasons. First, because it came to me as a product of the research that Jimmy Herbert, my dear friend that passed away, he devoted years of his life putting together all the documents about this ship. He was in love with the ship. He couldn't find it. He found plenty of other stuff, but he couldn't find this ship, and I want to do it for him to start with. And it's the Miles Barton from 1861 is an English ship that was coming from China, and it was lost in South Africa, in the southernmost place, the southernmost tip of South Africa. It was lost there. And the story is incredible. After the end of the Opium Wars in 1860, the English and the French together, which is something that it sounds weird, but the English and the French...
It sounds like it never happened, guys, but it did.
Well, it did happen in 1860. They ransack and plunder the summer palace of the Emperor of China at the moment, and they stole everything from the palace.
Standard.
I mean, it was like, you know, end of the battle prize, and they arrived to that palace and they plunder everything. And for you to have an idea how a summer palace of a Chinese emperor would be, it was an incredible scene. Because this is 1860, but they have their porcelain and gold and jade and stuff from every dynasty in China since ever. So the variety and the richness of artifacts and ornaments and things that they had in the palace is simply incredible. As it was a plunder, there is no real list of what they took and what they put in the boats. But one thing is known. They dismounted, they put apart a big fountain that was in the backyard, which has the 12 heads of the Chinese zodiac that they were putting water into the fountain. These heads of animals, the Chinese zodiac, these 12 heads, they were made of bronze. They were made in bronze. The heads of the animals are 1 meter tall, each of these heads in bronze. And they dismounted that fountain, they took the heads, they split the heads between the French ship and the English ship that would take them to Europe, and they came back navigating to Europe. The French ship made it, and the English ship, the Miles Barton, just got lost in South Africa with everything that they had on board. Along the years, the heads that were in the French ship had been showing up in this or the other auction from private collections. I know these big brands of perfume.
Sotheby's.
Dior. No, I don't know if Dior or someone would have one and they put it in Sotheby's.
A big house, probably.
Yeah. But all of French origin, curious enough, because they were coming in the French ship. And
that's funny that the French decided to sell them right away.
Well,
that's what I find funny.
It's a
whatever, they stole it already, doesn't matter. Yeah.
So these heads have been popping up in different auctions, and obviously the Chinese people, they are very close to their heritage. They don't like their heritage to be put into auction somewhere, and some guys in Europe had their heads of their zodiac animals of that beautiful fountain. So they have been making many efforts to buy them back. So they have been buying those heads to return it to China. So this makes it another very good reason why I would love to find that wreck, because there are 5 heads missing still that obviously they have to be in the Miles Barton, because the other ones were in the French ship, this one were in the Miles Barton sank in South Africa. And these 5 heads, I mean the 5 heads that are still missing, I will read them because I have them here, are the dragon, the snake, the goat, the rooster, and the dog. These beautiful heads are somewhere in the seabed in South Africa within a very interesting, certainly a very interesting group of different artifacts that they would have survived. I have seen pictures of these gold cups ornamented with precious stones and stuff. I mean, it's unimaginable the amount and the quality of the variety of artifacts that there would be there.
I mean, they ransacked a summer palace of an emperor. I'm pretty sure that they took a couple of pretty cool artifacts aside from the heads of the fountain. And I just wanted to add, it's the year of the snake, one of the heads that is missing. This year is the year of the snake.
The year of the snake?
Yeah.
Well, so it will not be this year that I find it.
I was gonna say it could be a good omen to find it this year.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm not sure I have time this year to go to South Africa and try
We'll put it in the schedule. We'll put it in the schedule. No, I really like this story exactly for that reason, and because horoscopes and zodiacs have become more and more popular. They're cyclical, kind of like the conspiracy theories that come to you. The love and appreciation for horoscopes and zodiacs, I feel like it's also a little bit cyclical, and we're in a time where being into horoscopes is really, really big for Gen Z and Gen Alpha. But I find it really interesting for so many reasons, this shipwreck of history of the French and the Brits working together, of them acting pretty much how they used to back in the day. I know things have changed, but yeah, stealing and pillaging everything that they can. And also that it's something that it's so important to Chinese culture and to Asian culture as a whole. I will do a little bit of research before the editing so I can add it as information. But last time I was in South Korea, we went to a park or a main palace. I'm so sorry that I'm butchering this. I will put pictures and the name, I think in Myeongdong. I'm not totally sure. But part of the garden of the palace had an entire horoscope, Chinese horoscope with sculptures. They weren't bronze heads like you're describing now. But I have, I think, a picture of all the 12 sculptures in the garden. So clearly it was something very commonly done for them. And I personally had that little inkling for this wreck because one of my favorite trips was going to South Korea and Japan a couple of years ago. Again, I know this is not China, but those two places are very much influenced also by Chinese influence. Positively or not, that is a political thing that I don't want to get involved in. But yeah.
As you rightfully said, heritage for them is so important, it's so present, it's so obvious in their day-to-day that
it's honorable. It's something that they keep with good, positive regard, with respect.
this is one of the main motivations I have to find these zodiac heads and give them back to the people of China. And the second motivation is obviously to honor Jimmy, who was the one who made the research and put together all the data for anyone to be able to go and find the ship. Yeah. So I hope you guys like this episode. It has to take a little bit long to explain these 5 ships that I still want to find, and eventually I will find, if not all, at least some of them. If you like the video, please leave it a like, share it with your friends, comment in the comment section if you have other treasure ships that you think that they worth be finding, and let's keep on diving.